Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's Just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
Only you can prevent forest fires.
You've got a tip from Melissa, a mind-blowing fact that no one's ever considered, a story from your past you think might be a link to something bigger, how to assemble that IKEA sofa table the actual way the instructions say. Tell us about it by calling the Tipster hotline, 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837, or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. And now here's your host. She obeys all traffic laws at all times, unless she realizes it's the last day to use the coupon she has for underwear at Victoria's Secret, Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell and more Victoria's Secret underwear. Yes, I cannot count the number of times poor producer Mark has had to wait where I'm like, oh, I got a coupon expires today.
Yes.
I get free underwear.
It's like we're just watching TV or something and oh shit!
We gotta leave now.
Oh shit, we gotta go now. We gotta go now. And then many people get killed.
Get the Batmobile out of the Batcave. We are speeding to the mall.
Right, it's kind of scary.
And it's not like I don't have 800 pairs of drawers.
Yeah.
But if you say the word free, I'm there.
Right.
I am a mooch, basically.
Yeah.
Just a big thieving mooch, although I'm not stealing it.
No, you're not stealing.
No, they're free. And quite frankly, they owe me. I bought so much shit from them. They owe me a bunch of free drawers. And I'm always just excited to get them.
Okay.
And the last time I went, the lovely young girl behind the counter goes, you know, your coupon's good for a pair that's a lot more expensive than what you picked out. And I'm like, I understand, child. Sweet, sweet summer child. But I'm old. And what I like are the goddamn granny panties that are called boy shorts that cover all my fats, as opposed to the thing that's a string up your hiney hole. I don't want that. I don't want the more expensive hiney hole pants, which actually Craig Lackey explained to me, the less material, the more money. He described them like bikinis.
Yes.
Which is interesting that a man knows the cost and the material content of bikinis. I'm not going to ask how Craig knows that.
He may just know because he understands economics.
Oh, yeah, that's probably it.
That is probably the case. I'm just going to venture the guess.
But I like the ones they call, and now they change the names occasionally. Now they call them shorties. SHORTIES, shorties.
Yes.
But they're like, they used to call them boy shorts.
Right.
And they look like Daisy Duke jean shorts.
They look cute.
Yeah, they're fine. Whatever. They cover my ass. That's all I'm saying. I like free underwear that covers my ass. Is that too much to ask as a grown woman? No?
Evidently at Victoria's Secret it's kind of tough. But...
No. Well, yeah. But like I said, you get a free coupon, you run to the mall, you pick up your free drawers, and it's a good day.
Yeah.
It's
whatever makes it a good day.
It's very, it's like Ice Cube's. It was a good day. Like I didn't have to kill anybody, didn't have to shoot anybody with my gun, and I got free underwear.
Oh, that's good.
It's like living in Compton. My life is like living in Compton. I didn't have to shoot anybody, and I got free drawers.
For those who don't know, that she's referring to a rap song.
A really good song called It Was a Good Day.
Yeah.
It's a really great song, actually. And the story behind that, I shouldn't go into because a reviewer changed her 5-star review to 3 stars because I talk too much.
you know,
Hi, it's a podcast.
We are not going to
No, I know you're not going to
that
mention
again.
That. Okay, we're not mentioning that. Anyway, I shouldn't talk too much, but the song is exquisite. It's a really good song. It's basically Ice Cube just talking about a very normal, average day where nothing bad happens, and he was using that as a throwaway, like a B-side or something back in the 80s or 90s when they did that, and it became a huge hit.
Yeah.
One of his, whatever producers or record people said, include that. It's good. And he's like, whatever. And it's actually it's a very good like story song. I really like those. So, okay. So enough. I'm going to zip my lip now because apparently I talk too much about underwear and wrappers.
We can talk as much as we like.
Okay. So here's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The first thing I want to talk about before we get to the worst case ever that I can't believe I'm doing this because it's just about to kill me. Weeks and weeks of research that I would text producer Mark at work and say, I don't think I can look at this anymore. I'm going to, poke my own eyeballs out. And he's like, don't do it. I'm like, no, I'm doing it. We're doing it now. I've spent way too much time. But what I do want to talk about is another podcast hosted by an exquisite human being, Mo Blackwell. And she's a gem of a human. She's a professor, and she has a college professor. She has the most beautiful teeth I've ever seen. And she's one of those people that when she smiles, I've never seen this. She smiles with her whole being. Whenever I think of Mo, I think of like a full body smile. She's a tiny person. She's a wee girl. But she smiles with her whole, like her eyes smile and her whole face envelops, into the smile, and then you feel like it's her whole body. But she hosts a really unique podcast called Targeted. And it's so smart because she's so smart. And it's so unique because she has this fascinating purview that not many of us have. I mean, she's beautiful inside and out. And the podcast, the conceit of the podcast is really brilliant and disturbing and important. So, Producer Mark, if you could play that promo.
Targeted. True crime, domestic violence. We tell stories of those who were targeted by domestic abuse and investigate cases of family violence, using academic research to interpret the events. As a college professor, I think we need to stop making family violence a secret. Let's use our stories to help, heal, and provoke change. Season 3 features the case of Josh Osborne, which is a story of abuse.
When he woke up, she was abusing him. When he went to sleep, she was abusing him. So his abuse was nonstop. It didn't matter what he did. Yeah. It was nonstop.
But it is also a story of hope. Targeted. True crime, domestic violence. Listen to us for free on all of your favorite podcatchers. Peace, my friends. Peace.
So Mo's podcast, as you can imagine, is really important because she covers cases that, when you think of domestic violence, I always think of just male on female kind of abuse, but it's so much more broad than that. And she covers families and, important topics, which hopefully you will find out when you check out her brilliant podcast, Targeted. And even though I am no longer allowed to discuss crappy reviews,
you're not. Don't you dare.
I'm not. I'm going for the positive right now.
All right.
We got 2 fantastic emails this week. One from Tipster Debbie from Cincinnati. And it was a great email. And she is a fantastic human being who gave us a couple of ideas for future cases to cover. But the thing I'm most fascinated about by her is that she is a graphic artist, a graphic designer. And she has taken some of her spare time and created, I think, a cottage industry. She has an Etsy store, an Etsy site, and it's Material Girl Doll Shop altogether .etsy.com. Material Girl Doll Shop .etsy.com. And her granddaughters are her inspiration, and they have American Girl dolls, and she makes outfits for them that are epic. She designs outfits from different movies that the girls might like. My favorite one on her site was the mermaid outfit. I almost plotzed, and I'm a shiksa, so I shouldn't really be plotzing, but I almost plotzed because the mermaid outfit was so fucking amazing. I was like, if you make those in large human sizes, I just need to buy a bunch of them to wear for myself and for my BFF Angie, who's a mermaid fan. Her work is spectacular. And what's so sweet is that she started this to give her granddaughters different outfits for their American Girl dolls. And now she's like, it's whole like, I don't want to say entire set pieces, but like, not exactly dioramas, but I mean backpacks and little companions for the doll. It's spectacular. So Tipster Debbie, thank you for your email that was so perfectly timed. I really couldn't have asked for a more beautiful gift. And if you need an outfit for your American Girl doll, you must check out materialgirldollshop.etsy.com. And the second email we got this week that was just a priceless gift was from, I'm going to call her Tipster M, and she is a Los Angeles County ADA. She is a prosecutor, assistant district attorney, and she listens to the podcast, and that is fantastic.
That's just so groovy. I can't even tell you.
It's fairly magnificent. And I did chase down the link as to how she found us. She found us through one of my favorite Los Angeles or LA County Sheriff's Department homicide detectives who had told me, and it wasn't that I didn't believe him, but he said, by the way, I've turned on a couple of district attorneys to your podcast, and they don't always agree with you, but they are listening. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you. But when one of them emails you and says, I am listening, and I appreciate how you humanize those in law enforcement because we're human too. That was like being given, the Hope Diamond or something. That's a really big gift.
It is. And if you're listening, Tipster M, Melissa and I often talk, that Melissa sometimes wonders if she could have ever been a police officer or been just worked in forensics or, and I told her the other day after we got your note, I think that God works in mysterious ways, and I think that you are getting that career through a different way, way you just didn't expect. You're having the people that you admire the most listen to the show, and that's amazing.
That's a joy. That's a joy and a gift. And no, I'm not. I don't have a career in law enforcement, but I am so happy to be on the sidelines and hopefully helping in some way and not hindering, hopefully helping, bring light or showcasing cases that maybe need a little extra help. And the wonderful detective who told Tipster M about us, he emailed me and said he has a case that's been adjudicated from his own personal files he wants me to cover. And I was like, what? I feel like I'm being punked. Like, I know there are other wonderful podcast hosts who call themselves the cop whisperers, and I'm not. I can't whisper. My voice comes from like my bowels. It's really big and loud.
It's the diaphragm, darling. The diaphragm it comes from the diaphragm.
But isn't that not the one in the vagina that you get from your doctor to keep him from having babies? Different diaphragm.
See, that's what makes you different, baby.
Right.
No, it's not.
I speak from my diaphragm that I've never had, or my IUD. I've never had that either.
Moving on.
We're moving right away from the vagina talk. So this case, I want to honor our Australian listeners any way I can because they've been so supportive. But just the next time I say, hey, send me a case from Australia you want me to cover, just tell me to go fuck off, because this one I'm gonna kill myself. This is so apparently in my dotage I'm easily confused, and this is just like, I don't understand. I'm like moving chess pieces around a board, and I've worked on this for a couple of weeks, and it's just I'm about to kill myself again. So Tipster Stefan, I love you, and don't ever fucking send me a case again, because I'll blow my head off.
She doesn't mean that, Stefan.
All right, I probably am being hyperbolic. However, the case of William Tyrrell is a huge case in Australia, and I understand why to a certain extent. I think there are some cases that the public glom onto, and we don't always know the psychology of why one case gets more attention than another. And I will tell you something that I find even a little more sad, but I'm hoping this will turn out to be a good thing. A beautiful young girl from Southern California originally, but lives in Salt Lake City, went missing in June and was found quickly because her Lyft driver is some sort of monster. And her name was Mackenzie Lewick, and her friends called her Kenzie. And she was beautiful, college student, smart, shy apparently, but was doing something that, some people could think of as physically dangerous. She belonged to an online site called like Sugar Daddies or Sugar Babies, where young attractive girls have contracts with older men, not necessarily for sex, but for maybe companionship for a certain amount of money. They call it an allowance. Anyway, Mackenzie, we really don't know the truth of what happened, but a Lyft driver picked her up, and he was on that site, by the way. picked her up from the airport after she had gone to her grandmother's funeral back here in Southern California. She flew back to Salt Lake City. Picked her up at the airport, took her to a park, and that's where everything sort of went haywire. Their cell phones were linked to the same park. They dug up his yard, found human tissue in his backyard, but found her remains about 60 miles away in a very rural area, buried under some trees. It was a really terrible thing, but her friends have started a Facebook page for missing. I think it's Mackenzie's Voice. I will find out for sure. But most of the messages they've gotten have been from people who say, I have a loved one who's missing, and I want to know what you did to get the attention that this case got. And that breaks my heart in half, because Mackenzie's was a beautiful blonde 20-something young lady. And that I call it the blonde white woman syndrome, where if you're a blonde white woman under the age of 30, they're going to look for you under every rock. And if you're anyone else, you can go fuck off. And that breaks my heart. But maybe her two beautiful young friends who started this campaign, they're working hard to make sure that everyone who has a missing family member, their voice gets heard also, even if their family member isn't a 20-something beautiful blonde white girl. And that's important. So I'm really hoping that they're on a roll, and they've already found two people that are missing, found and got them back home.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's
I didn't know that.
It's spectacular and heartbreaking at the same time. So why William Tyrrell's case has captured Australia, I don't exactly know, except that he is just about the prettiest little boy you've ever seen. And because he's a child. But I have to tell you, the details and the layers of this case literally make me want to pull all of my hair out. And I like my hair, and I don't have enough to pull out. So I guess the only thing I can do is start at the beginning, and anything that comes up during this case, during this telling of this story, feel free to ask questions, email us. It's a lot. So you'll have to bear with me, because there are so many players in this. I don't want to confuse anyone the way I was confused. There are many differences in the way that cases in the United States are handled and cases in Australia are handled. I've come to realize that. One of the biggest differences is the media. Even though Australia is a free country, we've always thought that apparently there are limits on their media. And I was kind of shocked at the way things have been handled. The large rewards that are offered by Australian law enforcement always kind of haunted me. I'm like, where did they get all of this money to offer all of these $1 million rewards? I don't know how that works. But their media is very different. And I explained to producer Mark, I grew up watching 60 Minutes, and it's typically, hosted, or the correspondents on the show are venerable journalists. And emotion, it must be a fine line as a journalist to not give into your emotion. I don't understand that, because I'm a giant ball of emotion. But I felt manipulated watching the Australian version of 60 Minutes with the foster parents of William Tyrrell, who were responsible for him at the time of his disappearance, because the correspondent cried. Not in a, and I really don't want to cast any aspersions on this person, but not in an organic, authentic way. I felt manipulated. He pulled out a white folded handkerchief and dabbed his eyes at the thought of William's doll, little Tara, which, by the way, is a Little Mermaid doll. Not Little Mermaid, but a petite mermaid doll. It's a mermaid doll that's small. Anyway, it was weird. It's about a 35-minute interview. You can find that on YouTube. You can find information on this case everywhere. I have the list here somewhere. I must have set fire to it. The New Zealand Herald, The Guardian, ABC.net. I mean, you can find information on William everywhere, and as more time goes on, you'll understand why. So September 11th of 2014, his foster parents and he and his older sister, he has a sister who, he was 3 at the time, his sister was 5. They take a 4-hour journey to the foster grandmother's home in the north coast of New South Wales in the village of Kendall. Now, the following day, September 12th, it's around 10 in the morning. His mother, his foster grandmother, his foster mother, his foster grandmother, so many parents, I can't, extended family, it's just going to kill me. We're sitting outside watching he and his older sister playing in the yard. They had been riding their bikes in the driveway. The foster father had taken a trip into town to conduct some business, so he was gone. They played hide and seek in the side yard. William was wearing his favorite outfit, his Spider-Man outfit. And if you take time to look up William's case, you'll see a picture that's used quite often, and his mouth is open, and you think, it looks like he's screaming, but he's really not. If you look in his eyes, you can see the joy in his eyes. He's playing his favorite game of like Tiger, where he would go roar, and he would do that with he's 3, and he would do this with his, family and his parents. So he's wearing his favorite Spider-Man costume and playing Tiger in the side yard. It's a beautiful property. I believe they said it was an acre, and then it backs up against a lot of woods, a nature preserve. His mother goes in to get a cup of tea. His foster grandmother's still on the porch, and his foster mother comes outside, and she hasn't seen him in about 5 minutes, and she can't find him. The timing, I'm going to say, is really smart for the foster parents. I can't imagine being responsible for a child, and they apparently were in negotiations to adopt he and his sister, even as their fosters. They were taken away from their parents, Carly Tyrrell and Brendan Collins. They, biological parents, they have extensive rap sheets, not for really awful things, but shoplifting, public intoxication, alcohol issues, drug issues. So that's why the kids were taken away to begin with. They had been taken away by Child Protective Services of Australia, and
well, that makes sense,
right? So but it's so confusing because the media in Australia refers to the foster parents as mom and dad, and they show their mouths moving and speaking, but they're being hidden. I guess they've received death threats because the kids were in their custody and William disappeared.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So I was like, she couldn't have a child that's 3. She's a little older than it. And I didn't understand why until I just dug and dug and dug and dug. And that's another thing. I feel like the Australian press protects the wrong people. They protect the people that have their children taken away. And I don't. Anyway, so we go back to September 12th of 2014, and the foster mother calls the police within a half an hour. And I guess it's 000 in Australia. That's who you call when you have an emergency. And she's as calm as one can be, but you can hear the stress in her voice, and she is saying, "Look, my son is missing, and this is how long it's been. He went missing from the side yard. She remembers her mother's address. They're visiting the foster grandmother. It's kind of it's rural, I think, is the way I would describe it more than suburban. It's a rural area where." Very nice houses. As the lead detective said, each property is about an acre property. It's on a cul-de-sac or a dead-end road. It's not a lot of ways in and out. It just is an odd place for a child to go missing by accident.
Well, yeah. And sounds like it'd be hard to abduct a kid.
It would.
As well.
It would. You would in my mind, you would have to know. There are more theories about this case than the goddamn JFK assassination. The conspiracies run deep and long, and that's what she said. And it's like, so that's why I'm telling you, if anyone ever sends me a case like this again, I'm going to set fire to it, because I've never just been so, my head is spinning. So the facts that we know is that William is gone. William was abducted in mid-morning of that day of the 12th.
Just to be clear now, the grandmother was still on the porch. When the
and
foster
his sister
mother
was with him in the yard.
And the sister is still around.
Yes, she is.
So
why would you steal one kid but not two?
And the grandmother didn't see William being taken.
Nope. Didn't hear anything. He was playing, tiger on the side yard. That's the questions I had for Stefan. I was like, look, thanks for sending this to me, asshole. I love you. God damn it. Why was the girl not taken? Why was only William taken? How could no one have heard? Did his sister see anything? I get it. She's 5 at the time. She's not going to be maybe a real credible witness, but it's like, oh, William was playing and then a man in a truck stole him. I don't understand any of this. Absolutely, children can disappear quickly. They're little and they're wily and they're slick, and you can grab them and they slip right out of your hands. It's just the nightmare that no one ever wants to know about or have happen to them. I can see how it could happen, but this one is really odd. There's much footage of the house. It's a lovely house. There's footage of the chairs on the side porch where the foster mother and foster grandmother were sitting. For him, it feels premeditated to me, not a swift, I'm going to drive by a cul-de-sac street, and if there's a little boy I can nab, I'm going to nab him. However, there's so many things in play here. Several of the neighbors are pedophiles.
Oh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That changes things a little bit.
And a washing repairman who'd come to the house to fix these foster grandmother's washing machine, they had thrown him under the bus and said he was a pedophile, and he is now suing the Australian Police Department, years later. It's been 5 years now. William would be 8 years old if he is still with us. There's so much, I can't. Australia does things differently. They don't have a sex offender registry. There are some theories as to why, that if they made every sex offender apparently large pedophile rings, not just in Australia, everywhere, but it helps if you get caught one time, you register, and where your whereabouts are, to the best of their ability, are known. There's no sex offender registry in Australia. There's theories that people would be horrified if they saw where all the pedophiles lived near them, if they had to register, and that,
Well, yeah.
I know. Property values would go down. I get it. I found out about, I never thought about a sex offender registry for the first couple of decades of my life, but probably in my early 30s, just, went on a whim, and there were 30 registered sex offenders in my area in the San Fernando Valley within 2 miles. I took some time to look, and the thing about, there has to be cutoffs, there have to be rules, there have to be laws for sex offenders. Unfortunately, if you're 18 and your girlfriend is 17, if you get caught, committing statutory rape, having sex with her, you have to register as a sex offender for the rest of your life. And there was 6 months difference in your age. So not everyone on the sex offender registry is what you think of, but obviously it's there for a reason. It's put in place for a reason, and I appreciate that being put in place. Australia has nothing like that. And apparently there's large pedophile rings, and there are as many conspiracy theories about this case as there are pedophiles and, regular human beings. So they search, obviously, a huge search for William because he's a child. And, it's amazing the amount of people that come out and donate their time, their energy, including people who have then later on been found out to be pedophiles. But
yeah.
They're like, we're looking for him.
Well, that's a shock.
So the police actually stopped searching about 8 days later. They've scoured all the bushland around. They've even the parents, before calling 000, knocked on doors. Have you seen William? Is he around? But they didn't. What was so fascinating to me is they waited before calling the police, but not too long. It's a fine line. Do you call the police and then your kid is found hiding, around your house because he's a kid playing? Or do you call the police right away? And they waited like 20, 30 minutes and called the police. That was amazing to me that they were on it so fast and handled it, I thought, really beautifully well. You can hear the 000 call that's recorded also. So after about 8 days, 7, 8 days, they stopped looking for him in the area. They end up searching the neighbor's home and computer. They end up searching Bill Spedding, who is the washing repairman. They search his home, his business, his computer, everything, his mattress, his vehicles. They drain his septic tank because they had zeroed in on him as the guy. He had access to the house. He was going to, he had come to give a bid on fixing the washing machine. He was coming back to do the work. They just, I feel like if there's any issue here, it's protecting the people who don't need to be protected and zeroing in on a suspect that probably had nothing to do with it. So now the family has been completely, they're not at all, suspects. However, extended family could really be involved in this.
Now, just to be clear, you're talking about the extended family of the foster parents.
Extended family of William Tyrrell.
Of the
little boy. Extended biological family.
Biological family.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah. It includes a famous rock star. So I'm telling you, this is the most layered case I've ever looked at, and it's still ongoing, and it's heartbreaking. And I will also tell you that on a recent trip to the Midwest, I was lucky to have nobody in the middle seat. I'm always the window person, and the lovely girl in the aisle was from Australia, and she saw a sticker, just the Tip-Sters sticker on my little iPad, and she's like, "What's this then?" And I was like, "Oh, I host a true crime podcast." And she's like, "You do? Oh my God, I love to listen to that." So I gave her one of my cards, and I could hear in her voice she was Australian. And I said, "Are you from Australia?" And she said, "I am." And I said, "Well, I'm researching the William Tyrrell case." And before I got his entire name out, she goes, "Oh, that's a mess." And I thought, "Yes, darling, it is. You are right. It's a mess. It includes everything from issues of police corruption to the lead detective, being taken off the case. And then several days later, he just retires, and we'll hear from him later. And I have faith in him, and I'm sad that he's not on the case anymore. So they have sort of found a couple of older pedophiles that they have zeroed in on. Mr. Spedding, who's now, as I said, suing 5 years later, suing the Australian police because he says that they have ruined him publicly, that they have, he said he and his wife are on the verge of a breakdown because of the public attention. It is heartbreaking. When you drain someone's septic tank, your neighbors aren't going to think that you're a good guy anymore. So even if you have nothing to do with it, they said they had found child porn on his computer when they had seized it during a search. And then that comes out that actually was never true.
My God.
I know.
Oh my God.
He deserves to sue them, is all I'm saying. And I'm not litigious, but he deserves to sue them. They've ruined his life. He's an older gentleman. They've ruined his life. He was a handyman who did, things like repair washing machines. And yeah. So homicide detectives, jurisdictionally, I will at one point need someone in law enforcement in this country to help me explain how jurisdictions work, but I can't even for the life of me begin to untie the threads of the Australian police force. They have task forces that were developed to find William. They were dismantled and then put back together over the years. It's been, like I said, it's been 5 years now, and it's the biggest 5 years of it's a dumpster fire. It's a horrible dumpster fire. And at the core of it is still a missing little boy. And there are many places he could be, which we'll get into. So homicide detectives take over in February of 2015. They look for him in all of these bushland areas after getting some tips. There have been more tips about William's case than any case in Australia. More to I believe it's over 2,000 tips and 1,070 something phone tips alone. So they're getting phone tips. They're getting emails. I mean, they're just coming from everywhere. In April, the foster parents go on 60 Minutes and they're crying. It's a very emotional video. And the police are like, we're not going to identify them. So you see them from like the nose down. Again, in the same month in April, the police are like, oh, we think he was kidnapped by a pedophile ring. In September of 2015, it's been about a year since he has been kidnapped. They say, we think that there were a couple of cars that were parked on the street, and we think they took him. Like one person distracted and one person took him. And it's like, why did that not come out? And the description of the cars, the sedans, are so ridiculous. They show a picture of the street, which is a very quiet street. Like I said, it's a dead-end street. And there would be no reason for people to have been parked there unless they were guests of the neighbors, and no one had any guests that they reported. In one of the videos on the story, the police officers show that you can't even turn around easily at the end of the street, which is where the foster grandmother lived. You would need to access a neighbor's driveway to turn around. It's so, I can't. So 2 years after he's missing, in September of 2016, $1 million reward is offered, leading to any information on William's return. This is where I don't understand how Australian law enforcement works, where they come up with the money, God bless them, but they come up with these large rewards for information, and it's I don't know that that's ever helped any case. I mean, you think when money is offered, it's going to shake the trees and maybe some shitty nuts are going to fall out and say something.
Yeah, that's the whole point, right?
Right. But it hasn't really helped, I don't think. So Detective Chief Inspector Gary Jubelin is tenacious, and he won't stop. He's an easy talker in the media, and some of his supporters are parents of a child whose remains were found because Gary Jubelin wouldn't give up. And the parents are so sanguine about Gary Jubelin's gifts as an inspector, as a detective. They said he knows how to use all of the tools at his ability. He even can use the media correctly. Now, if parents of a child who was kidnapped and found murdered are on your side enough to say you know how to use the tools to find missing children, for better or worse, even the media, that's a pretty ringing endorsement. If you ask me, it's...
Well, me too.
Yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. So at the beginning of this year, in 2019, so it's been, almost at that point, it was 5 years. In February, Detective Jubelin is removed from the investigation amid a misconduct probe. Now, when I say there's more conspiracy theories about this case than the JFK assassination, I really mean it. So they ask him to, well, they don't really ask him to step down, but I guess they kind of ask him to step down. They remove him from the investigation. And they say it's because he recorded conversations with a pedophile and that was illegal. And he's like, what are you talking about? I am fully within my rights as my job to record this pedophile. There was nothing hidden about it. We recorded 4 conversations. I mean, to me, he's crossing his T's and dotting his I's.
Yeah, it was done in the course of his job?
Yes.
As a police officer?
Yes.
At a police station, presumably?
I believe it was at the suspect's home.
Okay.
But he's so... again, this is just still going on in 2019. And I feel like it's almost something to distract people from the real thing, which is finding William. I don't understand. But so in July of this year of 2019, Detective Jubelin, no longer Detective Jubelin, he pleads not guilty to these illegal recordings. And I feel like the justice system in Australia is more drawn out than any, episode of Law and Order we could ever come up with in America. It takes years for anything to move through their court system. Years. Even small things. So he's being represented by a prosecutor who's now a defense attorney. And he said, in essence, I've been accused of recording 4 conversations. Those conversations were conversations with a person about the disappearance of William Tyrrell. I had a lawful right and an operational need to record those conversations. I'll repeat that. I had a lawful right and an operational need to record those conversations. He said he made no attempt to conceal the fact that he was making the recordings and that the police were aware he was going to be making those recordings. And then they asked him to step down because he made illegal recordings.
I don't get that. I guess there's something missing.
There's a lot. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. This is why I want to punch Tipster Stefan when I see him in person, which hopefully we'll get to see him next spring when he visits the U.S. I want to punch him in the throat for telling me about this case because I just want to lay down and cry. So Detective Jubelin, who again I say I have faith in, I've seen nothing in his behavior. Obviously, I don't know. I'm not there and I'm not watching him 24/7. But the number of people that have come out to support him, and all he wants to do is solve this fucking case. So they take him off the case. And just days after that, he says, sadly, I've retired from the New South Wales Police. Unfortunately, it's not what I wanted to do, but it's a direct result of the manner in which management treated me after these allegations surfaced. My position in the New South Wales Police has now become untenable. I was not allowed to carry out duties. I was taken off the investigation that I was leading. I could no longer continue to support victims and do what I do best, which is lock up the bad guys like I've done throughout my entire career. And again, he has supporters, not just his family who stand by him, but these parents of, a child who they say he was instrumental. And we all know it takes a village. Detective Jubilant isn't the only person working on William's case, or never was the only person. It's a large group of people. They've now, say 5 years later, they've parted down to 30 officers that are still actively working William's case. And that's probably true. But Detective Jubilant was the lead detective, and he was more well-versed on this case than any other person I've seen interviewed about it, because the details are overwhelming, as you can tell, as I struggle through this laundry list of people and suspects and family and foster family and biological family and potential biological family. It's overwhelming. But the parents of the missing child the remains are found, they say he was instrumental in locating our son's remains, and he knows how to use the resources at his disposal, including the media. No one is saying that he's perfect. He's a human being, but he's pretty fucking perfect for this case. He's working so hard and coming up against, barriers that are.
Well, I'd love to hear what the government is saying he did wrong. I mean, other than just, well, you shouldn't have done that. I mean,
they said he shouldn't have recorded the pedophile conversations.
So it's just a disagreement over what the law says.
Well, I'll tell you what the parents of the child that he found remains said that he probably can't say. They said, "We feel his success and high profile have embarrassed and upset a number of overambitious superiors who place their own careers before the task that they were sworn to do, which is finding William and locking up the bad guy."
Right.
So he, was like, there's an internal investigation, and he's, he pled not guilty, in July. There's so much going on. So here's a few of the conspiracy theories, and maybe there's a nugget of truth in here. So William's biological parents, that took a long time for me to dig around and find, Carly Tyrrell and Brendan Collins, who is listed as the biological father on William's birth certificate, and of his sister who's a few years older. His mother, Carly Tyrrell, was also dating a man named Jacob Nichols, who lives, apparently, an off-the-grid lifestyle in the outback.
Okay.
I know.
All right.
I know. And his mother, Sue Nichols, says, "I think that my son is the father of William Tyrrell, and I believe he took him and has him in the outback."
Wow.
Right. Now, she sounds a little out there, and she says, "I think William's alive. I think he's living in a community with my son, Jacob Nichols, who thinks he may be the biological father of William Tyrrell." And her quote is so terrible. She said, "There's little white faces among the Aboriginal kids in all of these communities, and I think that he's still alive, and that's where he is."
Uh-huh.
So there's that theory that he is, and I will tell you, there are as many people who feel that William is alive as there are who feel that William is not with us anymore. There are a lot of theories that he, was kidnapped by this pedophile ring, and he's 8 years old now, and he's being passed around, etc. But, again, the conspiracy theories are deep and wide, and he's such a beautiful little boy. And his, biological mom and biological dad, not great, upstanding citizens. They're very angry and upset, as they, anyone would be if you had your kids taken away from you, and then they're with foster parents who are responsible for them, and your kid disappears. Even if you're never going to get your child back in custody, you're pretty pissed off. And I don't blame them. So I can tell you that they have had psychics from probably all over the world try and do sessions on finding William. And a number of really astute psychics feel that he's still alive. And one of them has described a man in a particular vehicle, and a particular look and a particular age. And he is an extended family member of William's. And the psychic has described that he is with this family member, and the psychic had a vision of him alive and eating a sandwich. The family member happens to be also related to this rock star. So I know. So William's uncle is a singer and guitar player in a band called 5 Seconds of Summer. Guitarist. He's 24 now. When William went missing, he was 19. He has recently gotten engaged, and he's seems like a upstanding fellow, and everyone's wondering why he hasn't said anything. Why hasn't this guy with a big platform and a way to get people to listen, why hasn't he come forward and said, will you please find my missing small nephew, William Tyrrell? The theory in this corner is that Michael Clifford's father has William. He is, being sequestered or homeschooled or something, so where he is not, able to be found. He may look a little different now because he's grown up a little bit. So it's biological family members who, who may have him. Questions are like, why haven't any schools been looked at where extended family members live, or maybe a kid was registered to go to school? I think it's because if a family member, extended or not, has him, he's being homeschooled, or he's not going to school, or, they changed his name, or, I don't know. But I can tell you, a lot of people think he's still alive, and I can't blame them, because it just doesn't feel. The questions I have are, if an extended family member is coming to take him back after he has been taken from the family, because of Child Protective Services finding them unfit.
Right. That was one of my big questions.
Right.
So it would be like, you can't do this. You can't take him away from his biological family, so we're going to come and get him.
But why wasn't his sister taken too?
Right.
That was my big question. Why would someone zero in? That's why my head is spinning. Why would someone zero in on William and take him? And of course, then my mind goes, well, it would be a pedophile who collects boys, not girls.
Right. It points to a pedophile ring or a pedophile.
It does, except that how would a pedophile ring enter a cul-de-sac with little access, hang around waiting for an errant young man to play in the yard and then snatch him while his foster mother and grandmother are sitting on the porch?
Yeah.
Right. And you just take the boy, not the girl. Obviously, there's many pieces of information that we're not going to have, because I don't know how you question a 5-year-old girl, and maybe she was in a different part of the yard and didn't see what happened. But he clearly didn't wander away into the brush, into the woods. He may have been taken by a stranger, a random stranger. He may have been taken by a family member who had planned and orchestrated this. Why would it just be him and not his sister? There are so many more questions and so many more awful and yet maybe hopeful possibilities. One theory is that it was too difficult to get the girl at the same time, and then the case became so huge that they couldn't go back to get her, that they just got William and got him away from what they thought, the foster parents who weren't, taking good care of them, or they just wanted them back. I don't know. I can't.
Wow.
This is one of those ones where I typically have an opinion, and I got to be honest, the only opinion I have right now is that Detective Gary Jubelin was busting his ass.
And he really got a raw deal. It sounds like. See, this is one that we can really encourage tipsters, not just in Australia, but in this country and anywhere, to really dig in. There's so much information apparently online. We would love to hear your thoughts on this. Send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. If you see something that you think somebody ought to look at, we'd love to hear it.
I can tell you that the number of times that people think they have spotted William are overwhelming. One time on a plane, when it landed, a flight attendant said, this is a woman who looks like his foster grandmother, and this is a young boy that looks like William. And although I don't know why they would have been out in public if his foster grandmother stole him, I don't know. But the police were waiting for them when they landed, and it turned out it wasn't him. It's the number of times that a William lookalike has been spotted is overwhelming, and the number of tips that come in is overwhelming. And he's such a beautiful boy. I would think it would be difficult once you see him to think that you have seen someone like him, because he's a unique looking little boy. He's a beautiful, beautiful little boy. And he's now, hopefully, fingers crossed, 8. If he's with us, and the police in Australia think he's not. And I understand why they think he's not, because it's been 5 years. But how many times have we seen, and granted it may not be a million times, but we've seen, children who have been abducted and are alive.
Yeah, and raised for years
That's
by
right.
the people that abducted them.
For one reason or another, typically not a good one. But producer Mark is right. If you know anything about the disappearance of William Tyrrell, no matter what country you're in, if you are within the sound of my voice, please consider calling or emailing the New South Wales Police Department. You can call us at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837. You can email us at jttipsters@gmail.com. And more cowbell.
And remember, if you'd like to become a patron of the podcast, go to patreon.com/justthetipsters.